Hello everyone and welcome to another explained video on the channel. Today we're talking about Scorn. I will try give an explanation of what's going on in this underworld full of living and the dead, and something a little bit in between. This game has no dialogue and nothing to read, so it relies heavily on the environment to tell the story, and it does that, but at first glance nothing seems to make sense until you venture more into the world and explore every nook and cranny in this horrible, beautiful setting. Of course, it's easy to be distracted within the world of Scorn because of, well, its, let's say, colourful displays and depictions. So before we go into this video, I will warn you that I'm going to be spoiling nearly all of the content of Scorn, so be warned. And of course, if you like this kind of content and want to see more of it, make sure to subscribe and like and, do all the usual YouTube stuff, as it really helps me and the channel out greatly. But shameless self-promotion out of the way, let's get into this video. Firstly, I want to talk and explain a little bit about where we are. So a long time ago, when Scorn was first announced and released to the world, it was first set in some type of hell, and I believe from my memory it was just a student project. Now I imagine with censorship they might have had to change a few details very early on, but the charm still remains. Everything in this world seems to have decayed, like it's been sitting there for a long time. I think the creators of Scorn have done a fantastic job in conveying this. It seems to me in the world of Scorn something is running rampant, or already has done. So the world looks to be consumed by some type of creature, one that's infecting everything from terrains to structures. And you can also, as you get further in the game, see that this kind of thing, this infection, has consumed other living things within this world, including the humanoid creatures, as it retains them inside some of these little pockets of flesh and whatnot. In some scenarios it looks like they're still alive within this organism, if you will, but judging by how harsh this world is, I wouldn't be surprised if they were dead. And that's a given when, you're exploring the world of Scorn and you just see litters and litters of dead bodies and dead beings. It becomes very evident very quickly that there is an end goal for this character. They're really striving for something. Of course, we don't know what that is at the very start, but there's a need to climb higher, from an infected, decaying, bottomless pit to finishing in near luxury, near the end goal. But again, we'll get to more of this in the end of the video. So, who exactly actually are we? Well, I believe we are one of the last remaining humanoid creatures. We are one of the last roaming souls in this city. And of course, we know it's a type of city because Scorn have addressed that detail specifically online. While we have no specific identification for the player, I think this plays well into the lore of the world because you as a player mean nothing. Just another humanoid creature trying to obtain this end goal. It's also worth noting that thanks to the dog-like animal, it alters the player throughout the game, in some sense making the player unworthy of the end goal. But again, we'll explain a little bit more of that when we get to the end. A good proportion of this game is spent attached to the animal. I believe this is key on how to survive the fight from down at the bottom all the way to the top, because this might not be something you can do on your own. As we can see from the evidence, piles and piles of bodies and just decaying corpses have obviously, of course, tried this trek before and have failed. I believe this whole process is a test, because if it was unexpected, why would they have the tools at the end to remove the animal? Again, I think it's a type of test to find out if you're worthy enough to ascend further. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about the enemies of the world. And so it's interesting because there are a set of creatures or animals. I suspect there is nothing much more from the average enemy other than they seem to be a combination of the humanoid creatures merged with this infection that consumes the world. Perhaps even this infection is alive in some sense, and to protect itself, it's had to adapt to the world around it, trying to protect itself with these creatures that roam around and attack anything that doesn't seem like it fits in. And I think this point becomes a little bit more clearer later when we see the big elevator monster-like creature, how it just looks at us and expects us because it knows what we are, as it helps us and aids us, and with these new adapted creatures we don't get that same response. I also think in some sense the infection that's took over the world of Scorn is actually starving itself. I think it's actually resorting to a lot of last effort attempts to gain food or to consume whatever it can in its path, because it's struggling itself. There is nothing left. The land of Scorn is a barren. Everything in this ecosystem at some point seems to have been designed with purpose, from the door unlocks to harvesting the humanoid creatures to the large elevator animal, like I said earlier. It seems that this world was at one point must have been swimming with life, but this infection corrupted this. I do wonder if we ever get to see, perhaps even in a DLC, a little bit of life before this even got to where it is at this point currently in the game, because it seems there is a delicate hierarchy at play here. Now I won't go into it massively into this video because it's going to be long enough as it is, but there seems to be a social hierarchy. Lower people, middle class, and higher people. Even people with perhaps even religious aspects. Because everything in the game in the end seems to be more tailored towards tradition, sacrificial, and rebirthing and things like that. So of course this leads us on to talking about the ending, because again this is where a lot of people are going to really want explaining. The story is quite confusing up until this point, but the ending is what kind of starts to make your brain go, oh okay, that adds up there and there. But this video will be here to fill that gap, if you will. So the ending starts after you, the player, extract the animal from your body. Then it takes a final cinematic walk before the end, which is really awesome. Everything about this game is just so well built. After the cinematic walk, you literally leave your handprint on the world and proceed to give the blood to one of the other humanoid vessels, which in turn makes their body flow with blood. After that, you approach an apparatus which holds the player down, and a machine which has all the tools of a surgeon begins to work on you. This is the player's goal. The process is painful, but it's as if our character knows it needs to get through this to carry on. The apparatus then extracts your stuff. This is to leave it behind you as you're leaving this plane. Perhaps this is a way to preserve yourself, which is ultimately the natural goal, and leave you to be born again in another time. Perhaps this is more important this time around, because as we've seen, the Scorn world is barren. There is no one left. Perhaps this time, you leaving behind a little bit of yourself is the key to the future of a species, perhaps. The machine then prepares you for the next steps. In short, it looks to be a way of ridding you of anything that could taint you or hinder your next steps into what looks like to be the afterlife, or just the painless void, I imagine. It very nearly represents that of an Egyptian mummification in how they would embalm and treat a dead body so it can pass on. Again, it's more treated, from what I can see from the world and whatnot, as an honor to be doing this, as this ritual, this sacrifice or whatnot. But again, it looks to be highly praised within this social hierarchy. After this, the lid of your skull is removed and you are connected to a stream of collected consciousness, like a wave returning to the sea. At this point, you wake up as one of the humanoid vessels, and this is where their part comes in. One of them removes you from the machine, but still embalming you in the process. I theorise that this is to keep the original body going, responsive, and not completely dying through the process. And I know it seems counterintuitive, but again, we don't know the ifs and ahs of this world, so it's still plausible. After the vessel carries the player's body towards the end goal, we can find what only can be described as the end, the next, the void. The consciousness switches back to the body of the player, but unfortunately for our player, the dog-like animal returns hungry for more, and the animal attacks our player. The player desperately reaches out for the end, but they're dragged back and consumed by this infectious animal. The player again tries to take consciousness of another body, trying to free itself perhaps, but it's too late. The end cinematic shows us the tragic ending for our player, and we get one last look into the eyes of every being that the animal has consumed before seeing it finally take our player, and thus becomes part of this infected, broken underworld. The player will suffer for as long as that infection remains. So close, but so far. This was a story about a person, a thing, a humanoid, trying to ascend. They struggled but fought on. While he left his imprint on this world, literally, ready to be born again, he never got to move on to something greater. Again, from what I was saying right at the start of the video about how the game was setting out, you can really see it come through here. From the premise, it would be so easy to assume that this was a fight for a desperate soul damned to this empty world of limbo or hell, fighting for the chance of rebirth or to ascend upwards. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I really enjoyed playing it and I really enjoyed making a video about it. So again, thank you to Ebb Software and Kepler Interactive for giving me a key so I can do this. It's been awesome. But on that note, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think about what this place is and where we even are and how it all works, because again, I get super interested in other people's interpretations of how things work out and what this world was at some point. And if you have a question or would like me to cover another part of Scorn, let me know in the comments below, and of course if obviously enough people are interested, I will cover it. But with that being said, if you enjoyed this video and this type of content, please make sure you hit like and subscribe, you know, all the usual YouTubey stuff, because it really helps me in the channel a lot. But with that being said, I wish you the best morning, day or night wherever you are in this world. Stay safe and I'll see you all in the next Theory video. Bye.